Good evening and welcome to a series of critical conversations that we are having on Scroll in partnership with Pi Consulting and Survivors Against TB. My name is Chapal Mehra. I'm a writer and a public health specialist. And today we are going to be talking about art in this pandemic. Our experience of this pandemic is filled with stories of resilience, stories of hope, and stories of courage. But some of the stories that have kept us glued and intertwined into our lives are the stories that stream into our homes, stories that reach us through the internet, and the OTT platforms that have reached our homes today, from Netflix to Prime Video and so many others, have become some of the main conduits of these stories to us. This is unusual in India because usually we are used to big screen movies and television of a certain kind. But these platforms have sort of reinvented and reorganized, in a sense, rejigged the whole puzzle around storytelling. These are stories from series like Made in Heaven, Mirzapur, and so many others that India is completely sort of entrenched with and enjoying fully during this pandemic. The importance of these stories cannot be underestimated because we are learning from these stories. These stories are keeping us entertained. And in times that we are forced to be in our homes, turning inwards, these stories have also become mirror to society, the society around us, which is not sugar-coated, which is not heavily dosed with happy endings. It's something that is making us look inwards, but also reflect on our own lives and on our society. So today our guest is one of the characters and one of the protagonists of many of these series. But before I introduce him, let me give you the format of the show. As always, we will be in conversation for about 45 to 50 minutes. We look forward to live questions from you. You can reach us on any of our social media platforms, from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere for Scroll, Pi, or for SATB. We look forward to the questions, and we will also try to make this conversation as bilingual as possible. हम ये बातचीत इंग्लिश हिंदी दोनों में करने की कोशिश करेंगे ताकि अगर आपके सवाल हिंदी में भी हैं तो इसमें कोई तकलीफ की बात नहीं है. हमारे जो गेस्ट हैं वो आपके साथ हिंदी में भी बातचीत करेंगे. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest for today, Arjun Mathur, who's now recently an Emmy nominee. Congratulations, Arjun.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Appal. Thank you for having me.
So thank you for joining us. I just went into a long introduction because I thought the OTT platforms and the stories that we get from the OTT platforms are so important. And some of the stories you have been heavily involved in. But first, let me start with the big news. You've just been nominated for an Emmy for Made in Heaven. And it's a pretty interesting role, right? Because most people wouldn't, in mainstream, what we call Hindi cinema and Hindi TV, wouldn't dream of taking this kind of a role. They wouldn't choose it. And I want to ask you, why did you?
Well, you're right there, honestly. But let me tell you that this is not actually the first time that I did so. The very first time that I faced a camera professionally was for a short film by Meera Nair called Migration, in which I happened to play Irfan Khan's young homosexual lover. So that was the first time that I ever faced a camera. At the time, it was just it was nothing. It was like it wasn't even a thought. As an aspiring actor, I was getting the opportunity to be directed by Meera Nair, share screen space with Irfan Khan, and it was a no-brainer. The second time that I did it was for a film called I Am by Onir. The film did go on to win the National Award as Best Hindi Film. But when it came to me, honestly, I had a thought. By that time, at that point in time, I was kind of going through a personal journey in which I was starting to learn and realize that, that talent is not all that determines your success here. So, and I was coming to terms with that. And I was thinking that, you know what, if I'm not getting a chance to do what everyone else is doing, then I have to find another way, and let me try and do what nobody else is doing. And that film in particular, it had this intimate scene with a man, which at the time did scare the hell out of me. But as an actor, I certainly wanted to break that barrier in myself, and I wanted to challenge myself with it. So therefore, I went ahead with that. So coming back to Made in Heaven, by the time Made in Heaven actually came to me, I was a little bit apprehensive. Just my first instinct was just a bit of apprehension, only because I had done it twice before, and I sincerely felt that there are other actors that should be challenged with this kind of role. So I shared that with Zoya, and all she said to me was that, you know what, fair enough, take it home and read it. And it took me one night of reading to realize what that show was and what it was trying to do, what it was trying to say. And I just had to be a part of it. I knew that. And I was so thankful and grateful that it had come to me. So, yeah, yeah,
I mean, I want to follow up. You've said a lot of very interesting things about how talent doesn't determine success very often, but there's always the desire to do something meaningful, something impactful, and in a way, this show has done that. But for all these roles that you've done, whether it was with Mira, whose short film was really quite remarkable at the height of the HIV crisis, in a sense, and sort of looking at those stories. How does one
yeah.
prepare for this role? Because most people don't know where to start, and there is also the fear of being typecast. Being given one role or one kind of role all the time, which is difficult for a young talented actor.
In terms of preparation, I can't say for sure because look, the filmmakers, I understand that in the previous decades in Bollywood, there has been misrepresentation of the community, and often a time they've been ridiculed almost, for a long time it was almost like the comic relief in a Bollywood film to have
Yeah.
a queer character, and that's all really bizarre. So for this, obviously, I mean, for these, I mean, I've only done it firstly with filmmakers that are of a different mind and that are of a certain level of sensitivity and maturity and are not interested in misrepresenting the community. So coming from that, they were also very clear that look, his mannerisms or behavior are not supposed to give away his sexual identity,
Mm.
because that's not how life is, but so yeah, so in terms of preparation, it didn't require anything special from me, or anything that I wouldn't have put into a part if I was playing a straight heterosexual man. I've done so many more of those. So yeah, actually, it was a breeze for me. And in Made in Heaven in particular, Zoya, the makers were very clear that this character is an alpha male. He's masculine. He just likes sleeping with men. In fact, when you see him on screen, even women should desire him. But oh, too bad he likes boys. That was the approach that we were going with. And so, yeah, in terms of preparation, there was really nothing special that it took from me, except each time that I had to get intimate with a man on screen. Of course, for 10 minutes before giving the shot, there was a little bit of edginess, but you just jump in and do that. It's work.
Yeah, that's one of the main questions a lot of people were asking me when I said put out
Right.
a social media creative, and they were like, you have to ask him. Uh,
Yeah.
how does one prepare for those? Because what I loved about the series also was not just that it showed queer characters in a certain way, but it was a deeper comment on all our sexual lives, right? The underbelly was
Yeah.
coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and people were like, no, actually this doesn't happen in a marriage, but it does. And
Mm.
the intersection of the queer and the straight world, which we think is so finely drawn, is actually not, because these
Yeah.
characters are jumping between friendships and affections. So when you
Yeah.
look at the queer character and the sex in this, I don't think this has ever been done in such a tactful way
Yeah.
on an Indian screen. How did
Yeah.
you and the director, I want to say, because the director has a role to play here,
Yeah.
prepare
Yeah.
for it?
You don't prepare for this. You don't prepare for it, to be very honest. And again, I just want to reiterate again that honestly, the preparation for a part is, unless it really requires you to be physically different from what you are, or, put on a voice or something like that, unless you really need to change something about yourself for the character, then it's the preparation is no different from preparing for any other character, because what you're actually preparing for is an emotional journey of a character you know
Mhm.
so that has nothing to do with physicality, to be honest. So yeah, the preparation is always coming more mentally and emotionally, coming to a place where you need to be. However you do that, where different actors have different ways of getting there, of getting where they need to be able to truthfully portray the emotions authentically. Yeah, so that preparation is an emotional one. And it exists for every part, whatever it is I play. You know.
Mhm.
But sorry, what was the other part of your question?
No, I mean, I was just like, how involved was the director in this preparation, or not?
Yes. Yeah, no. In the day-to-day preparation of playing this part, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, not too much. After we did our initial readings, and after we had all our conversations before we started shooting and did all the readings, and once we had our understanding of the characters, the directors very much left us in complete control of our devices. Also because there were directors were changing, the actors were constant, and the directors were changing. So often what happens in this format is sometimes a new director comes in who is not yet familiar with the world that, while filming, has been created, and they need the actors to kind of walk them through it a little bit. It happened with me on another British TV series I did called Indian Summers. That was the first time that I experienced it, a 10 episode format wherein there were three directors that were directing through those 10 episodes. And yeah, and often they would just come in and be like, okay, you guys know you were playing these characters, so how do you want to do this? So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I will say that, of course, on a technical level, day to day, every day, the fact that the way it's been portrayed is so aesthetically pleasing and emotionally resonating, that is all the director. That's completely the director and the DOP, and the crew that's putting that together. Yeah, like the intimacy, the scenes where we had to get extremely intimate, the scene you spoke of, which has never, something like that has not been shown between two men before in India. And yeah, those were just crafted by our technical team. It was very, very much decided how best to keep this in a beautiful zone rather than anything that crosses a line.
We're at our quarter mark, so I'm going to remind our audiences, if you have any questions for Arjun, please go ahead and ask them. I know one of the questions is going to be around the Made in Heaven season 2, so I'm not even going to ask that. I'm
Okay.
just going to leave it to people to ask that
Yeah.
of you.
Sure.
But
Sure.
you mentioned something very interesting around talent, which I thought was really a segue into our next question, which is the OTT platforms, right? Suddenly, we are seeing, with the rise of these platforms, almost like a burst of creativity. We're seeing stories we have never seen before. We are seeing narratives. We are seeing actors we have never seen before, right?
Yeah.
All these actors, really talented, were small characters in some big film where there's always a big star and there's song and dance. But suddenly, these guys are across the board getting such versatile roles, and we are seeing such a fresh breath of stories and talent, which is a break from the, I don't want to say this, but Saas Bahu serials that had driven
Yeah.
us crazy,
Sure.
uh, uh,
Absolutely.
Indian audiences. Do you think these shows are more real because they are showing us the anger, the violence, the inequality in society, the real emotions of real people? Because there are no sugary endings to a lot of them. How do you react to it as an actor, as an artist?
I mean, I personally, I love where we are. I love where we are because, like, listen, I've had a long journey. It's been 13 years that I've been acting, and I've been completely in that situation that you speak of. I think there's so much talent in this city that's been just waiting in the wings, for their moment to shine. And you're right, like many actors, myself included, definitely have been used as embellishments in star vehicles. Um, but I like where we are now. The thing is that what OTT has done essentially, more than even more for creators and filmmakers than and writers, than actors. It's they've freed them of the shackles of this box office pressure, and that essentially has given everybody the freedom to make braver choices, write better content, make casting choices that they weren't able to before. And yeah, it's like a total renaissance, I think. And for the last few years, I know there's been this unending debate of theater versus OTT. I can't pick a side there. I love it all, but here we are, a situation we've been pushed into where theaters are shut. All the content has been coming on streaming platforms. Often we've had a really big film that's come with a small show, and the show has overshadowed the film completely. So I think it's amazing that this is happening. I mean, um, it just kind of levels the playing field a lot, and all that can come out of this at the end is just I think everyone will together pull up their socks. We're no more catering to just a niche audience in India, or just the masses in the B centers or anything. We are speaking to a global audience. It's going to push everyone to pull up their socks and just create better and better content, and I think, like, the audience is in a win-win.
No, and I think the artists are also in a win-win, because I was recently talking to a group of people who are from what we term B crowd or B
Sure.
towns, and the amount of resonance that shows like
Yeah.
MIH or
Wow.
Mirzapur or Patal
Sure. Sure.
have with them,
Yeah.
because they feel like it's finally showing
Correct.
the world that they live in,
Correct.
and not some glossed over version of
Absolutely.
a university or
Absolutely.
classroom or of life, where everybody
Yeah.
has a big fat Indian wedding, because most Indian weddings are not like that, as you know. The other question that has come up, actually, we've already got two people asking me about MIH second season, so I'm just going to bring it up
Yeah.
and
Okay.
ask.
Sure. Well, honestly, honestly, I'll tell you, we were almost going on the floors in the month of May. So, but then we got struck by this, and this is where we are. But I don't know, honestly, I'm as in the dark as you. I am hearing some murmurs of things starting up again, but I don't have a date or anything solid to present. Unfortunately, Amazon or Tiger Baby will be much better equipped to answer this. I'm just waiting. I'm dying to get back to.
Well, I'm just happy to tell the audience that, rejoice, there is a second season in the making. The story hasn't
No,
ended.
no, no, no. The story hasn't ended. The scripts are some version of the scripts were written, and we were going to be shooting in the month of May. But now let's see when, because now so much more needs to be considered before you can just be like, okay, we're shooting. The logistics, the precaution, we've and I mean, just imagine, and to top it off, we have to shoot weddings.
Yeah.
We could how we it's strange, isn't it? Because suddenly you have to depict something which has changed. This has changed about the world. No more are we going to weddings the way we have seen in season one. Now we all have to wear masks. So I mean, I personally am pretty curious to see how our art and cinema starts to adapt to this new reality, even going beyond Made in Heaven, you know?
And it's going to be an interesting change, because like you were saying, every public event and celebration has
Yeah,
changed. So
yeah,
I mean, that is why the OTT platforms are so important today, because they're sending
yeah,
experience to us in our homes, which is the safest place as we
absolutely.
know it today.
Yeah,
The other question that's just come up, uh, um, which is very important, I think, which is again MIH. I'm sorry, there are going to be a lot of MIH questions for
That's
you.
fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Rachita is asking, MIH spoke about extremely important issues such as class, dowry, superstitions. I think she's referring to the lady, educated lady who gets married to the Bargat tree and whatnot. Was the script a major push towards you taking the role? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Sorry, please continue. And
yeah, sure, please go ahead. Yeah.
no, I just want to say that that's exactly what it was. Because as I shared with you, until I read the script, I was slightly apprehensive because, I was like, I don't want to play the same part for the third time. But as soon as I read it, I knew this was not at all the same thing as anything I had done before. And what was instrumental in making my decision was exactly this, that, I mean, it's a really tough and strange time we're living in, in this country. And yeah, and it was taking up such a loud and clear voice against patriarchy, misogyny, and all these archaic values and traditions. Yeah, and the tremendous support that it was taking up for the queer community. All of these, and most importantly, I think just the fact that the show had such a strong female gaze. It was more a woman's perspective than anything, which made me say yes, because I think that is something that is absolutely required in these times. Yeah,
And I love the fact that it celebrated, women were celebrating their sexuality and sexual desire and negotiating it in this
yeah,
very patriarchal space, like you were saying, the
absolutely.
female, which
Yeah,
was which is usually not present. The other
yeah.
question we have is from Puneet Jasuja, who's saying, um, you've learned a lot more about the gay space in India and the challenges that exist. What advice do you have for gay youth who, in many scenarios, are really stuck in a maze and can't find a way out during COVID? Um, yeah, I think this is also, we've done a whole series on mental health, by the way. And one of the recurrent questions that have come up is how do queer people deal when they're locked up in homes which are not always welcoming, in society which is not always welcoming. And I think because this question is really not to you as an expert, but really to say that you've inhabited that character and that life, and as a person, what would you say to them? Because I think you've come to understand that space a lot better.
I'll start with saying this, that I think, like, through this time, I can only, of course, share my experience and speak from that. But through this time, through this lockdown period, I have personally felt a lot of empathy for people who have been alone in this time. You know,
Mm.
I think I've been most fortunate if I happen to be living with a partner or family or anyone or even a pet. You know, but being alone, I can't imagine, and I really, my heart goes out to people who have had to deal with this situation like that. First of all. Secondly, uh, coming to, now, this does not necessarily, this applies, I guess, across the board, but this is for me, that what I realized, and I realized very quickly, that where we are is a strange, it can spiral downward very fast, because I do believe that we are in some sort of mass depression at the moment, even before this pandemic, just the things that are going on in the world, all over the world. I think that's what the world is kind of experiencing, whether we are acknowledging or not. And a lot of the world's population is suffering mental health issues, probably us included. And so anyway, when this lockdown happened, so firstly, I very much encourage just speaking to people, no matter what, just speak to people, just speak to a professional first and foremost. If not, then your friends, family, whoever, please, just get out of this, that I am alone in this world. Nobody is alone, first of all. um what I came to realize was that this is a strange time, and I need to not judge myself or feel too guilty about how I'm taking care of my mental health in this time. I decided to do whatever it is, whatever it takes, to keep my mental equilibrium safe and sane. And for that, whether it meant vegetating on a sofa for 48 hours, I did that. Whether it meant have a 7 cheese pizza 5 times a week, I did that. if it meant consume more alcohol than you otherwise do, I did that. I literally did whatever I wanted to do to feel good in the moment, because I just recognized that it's a hump that we need to just kind of ride over and kind of address once we're over the hump. You know what I mean? So that's how I personally dealt with it. And yeah, um, as for gay people, I unfortunately, I wish I was more of a, I wish I had more expertise to to say anything on this, but yeah, I unfortunately can't. I can only offer what I can offer coming from my personal experience. For gay people in particular, and for other humans in particular, I would say that the first step to anything is to just accept yourself and love yourself and let everything just flow out of there. That's all I can say. Yeah.
I think those are two really important points that you raised, is a little bit of self-love and a little bit of self-care and
Yeah.
self-indulgence at
Yeah.
these times, and seeking professional help or circles of care are really
Yeah.
important. Um,
Sure.
yeah, let me take you back a little, because I think that's very important. You're a Delhi person. The show that
Hmm.
made you big is a Delhi-based show, all about, in a sense. Um, what was it like moving? Because a lot of people ask this question. You're a success now. You're an Emmy nominee. Um, what was it like moving and trying to find a foothold in the world of film, especially where connections matter so much? And somebody the other day said to me, "There's a complete oversupply of talent and an undersupply of good opportunities." Like,
Hmm.
if there are 500 good people, there are five roles for them.
Yeah.
What was it like? Tell us a little bit about your journey, because I think that's an interesting look back in these times.
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, I grew up in Old Delhi in civil lines, and Delhi, generally speaking, is a much more starstruck place than Bombay is, because this is where films are made primarily. I guess people just don't give it that much attention. But I'm telling you, growing up in Delhi, I certainly was extremely starstruck and enamored by films.
Hmm.
Um, I was about 10 years old when I moved to Bombay with my family, and I visited a film set once, and I just knew that, okay, this is what I want to do, you know. Uh, but whatever, by the time I came to Bombay, and I came with a lot of naivety, basically, I would say. Ready to, I came prepared to train myself in whatever grueling manner whatever lay before me. And for me, working as an assistant director was the path. Um, but once I made the switch, and I don't know, there was a point in time when, I mean, there was a point until when, sure, like, I think I did really well for myself in the beginning of my career, wherein I got to work with some really talented actors and filmmakers. Meera Nair, Zoya, Farhan had directed me. I had worked with Nasir Saab, Baman Irani, Shabana Azmi, Vijay Raz, Irfan, these real powerhouses of people. And including the odd commercial project, like I was in a My Name Is Khan. And um I, however, started realizing very fast what I was kind of in commercial Bollywood. I was kind of being relegated to the best friend kind of zone, and I was not too happy with that happening. Um, with that typecast taking place, because of course, every actor wants to shoulder projects, be more consequential in the story. So I just kind of started focusing more on independent films that were giving me more to do, and they were smaller films, but they were giving me complete creative satisfaction. I did ads for money, and that's how I survived. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It is not easy, because other than just whether you still spoke of, like, oh, there's 30 people or 50 people or whatever. There's actually a lot more. And I don't know, I consider myself really, really lucky and fortunate that I if wherever I've gotten, you know what I mean. I have no misconceptions about like, or no feeling of like, oh, but why am I not there? Because that's a real trap, comparing journeys. I know I'm digressing a lot. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but
That's
I'm just I'm just trying to say that the journey is really hard. It's really difficult. I have certainly I faced a lot of heartbreak, a lot of rejection, a lot of and these things like envy and self doubt and um, insecurities. These are things like we walk hand in hand with these. This is all part of an actor's journey, honestly, and it does not escape you, even if you've reached the pinnacle of your success. I'm telling you, even Mr. Amitabh Bachchan wakes up with similar insecurities of, have I not become fat? Or, we're all working, we're all just counting on our next job. So I don't know. It's not easy for anybody. I think the only, however, what I didn't let happen to me is that, since we spoke about typecasting earlier as well, um, typecasting is not something that just happens to you unless you allow it to happen to you. Typecasting is not your problem. It is the problem of, it is the lack of vision on the part of people who just can't see an actor do anything else. Like, people think, if, oh, he's done this well, so let's just keep making him do that. Nobody thinks that, oh, he's done this well, maybe he'll do other things well too. So number one, I didn't let myself get typecast. Because I just decided nobody's going to do that. I am making my decisions. I have the right to say no, and I'm going to do what excites me. So yeah, I don't know. And there were many times when I faced hurdles, like, like many a time some really big filmmakers, on more occasion than one, I've been right up there in the running for the part in some really life changing films. And at the you know and I couldn't be cast either because the market economics weren't allowing the director to take me, or another time because I happened to be much better than the star kid who was also being launched in the film. So these are experiences I've had, but it's okay. I don't, all the difficulty. I know a big deal is made of the how difficult life is in this industry, but I don't think it's easy anywhere. I think a medical intern trying to make it in the medical world must be having just as difficult a time as I've had trying to make it here. It's just that
no,
we get, yeah,
no,
sorry.
and actually, that's the no, no. Please, I'm saying that's a really important point that you're making, because people forget that nothing
Yeah,
is easy, and an actor's life is filled with insecurities. So you have to learn to live with it. I think
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
an important thing to say. Um,
absolutely. What I found most important is to really turn all that negativity, all that disappointment, all that difficulty you face. It can really turn into your fuel.
yeah.
If when someone tells you that you can't be something, you can bloody well turn around and be like, you know what, fine, that's just you saying that. I'll show you. You know. So yeah, and I think at the end of it is just belief in yourself, and of course a realistic assessment of whether you are talented or not. you know I don't know.
Realism
Yeah,
should exist everywhere. We
yeah.
also couple of questions about your uh, um, new series, which is Gone Game, right?
Mm,
Yeah, and people are talking about how did you shoot it, because there's all these stories about you shooting it from home. How does
yeah,
that feel? I mean, for an actor, the crew, the feel, the grime, the paint is like preparing for a battle,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah.
suddenly from home, what was that experience like? Tell us.
So firstly, it was pretty amazing, and I think I was really fortunate. I don't think there is any other actor that got to shoot and release two projects from within their home during the lockdown. The first was a short film for Netflix called Home Stories, that's on YouTube. But that was still a more contained piece. It was a 10-minute short film, and it was a single actor in one location. So it was easy to do at home. Um, the series, The Gone Game, was something else altogether. It was a bunch of really skilled people that had come together out of boredom and were like, okay, let's try and do something with this, and it was just really exciting from the word go. I was really excited with the cast that was on board and with the director who I've worked with, Mr. Nikhil Bhatt, in a film called Bridge Mohan Amar Rahe. So I was really excited by it. Um, I will say it's not easy. Shooting at home is not easy because you're doing the work that you're used to like 10 departments doing on a normal shooting day, everything, move the furniture, jhadu, you're doing everything. So I will say that it takes a certain skill set and a certain breed of actor, one who is able to adjust and work with so-called jugaad, as we say, And I mean, if you're too used to your frills and your makeup van and this, that, and the other, then I'm sorry, okay, this is not your cup of tea. But I guess it comes down to how badly you want to channelize this, everything that you're feeling, and I think the best thing to do with it is to put something creative out. So yeah, the challenge was great. And for Gone Game, I must say that there were many times that I didn't even know what I was doing, because my character in particular is the one who contracts the disease. He's the one that goes missing. So my shoot was completely disconnected from everybody else. So there were many times that I was just not even aware of why the director is making me do what he's making me do, but I would just trust him and just deliver what he wants. And this is a show that has been completely put together in its post production. Full credit to the director and the technical team for pulling this off. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic is
Sorry,
muted.
sorry.
One of the questions that two people are asking, Tahia is asking, is about, is this the new normal, you think? Because we're going to be living with COVID-19 with the best estimates for at least a year and a half to 2 years. There's all talks of vaccines and other things, but even if there was a vaccine, it would take at least a year to reach the average
Yeah,
person because there are
yeah,
high-risk populations that have to be vaccinated first.
yeah.
So the industry, right? Is this the new normal, at least for a year and a half? Is this how we're going to be seeing the creative process work? And is that how people are going to be writing scripts? What do you think?
I uh, I don't. Well, I hope not. I hope this is not the new normal. I'm. I hope we are able to reach a place and get back and resume our lives the way they were. But I doubt we are going to be able to resume them the way they were, so to speak. There will be changes taking place, and right now that's where we are. We're in a transition. We have to figure a new way of working. We're in the process of that. All this creative output, shows like the Gone Game, that's part of this process. I myself have been quite confused, and this has been a thought that's been on my mind a lot, because how do right even before we even get to how we're going to shoot, it's strange. I wonder how writers and content creators are going to deal with this new reality, because suddenly, if you're writing something, suddenly what you were writing does not apply in this new world anymore, because we can't have people touching the way they used to, etc. And I don't know, I'm very curious to see how this affects our output, and how we adapt to it. At the end, all I know is the one thing I know is that humans adapt. So I'm sure, and the creative fire is unextinguishable. So I know that we will figure it out, we will adapt, and we will continue to put out our creativity, however best we can. Let's wait and see how that is. I of course don't have the answers that nobody in the world has, but I can only
Yeah.
hope. But we'll figure it out together. Yeah.
I mean, it's also interesting because you mentioned the industry, you mentioned talent. And I want to ask you this question because a couple more questions have come, but I want to ask you this question before we take them up, which is that the industry itself, and I don't mean the film industry alone, but
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, has been under a kind of, how shall I say, like a sustained campaign against it. And
Yeah.
this is, of course, troubling because we
Yeah.
seem to be there's an insistence to make examples out of them.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a lot of this negative publicity happen. How
Yeah.
do you think people are reacting inside the industry, and how do you personally feel? Because I think there are all these challenges that happen when something very highly visible, or an individual who is highly visible, something wrong happens there. But is that is that justified? What do you think about it?
No, I think that what we've been going through is an absolute smear campaign, to be honest. Um, there's all kinds of agendas at play, and it's really sad. It's really sad. We as an industry basically leave ourselves vulnerable to people's love, acceptance, and hate and brickbats. So yeah, and I mean there is and there is a bit of a human tendency. Now the thing is, like, stardom and celebritydom and fame has also changed a lot over the last decade. There was a clear boundary between audience and cinema, which actually does not exist anymore. A lot of it thanks to social media. So yeah, anyone can say anything, and all the celebrities will read everything. So there's those boundaries don't exist anymore, number one. So, and humans have a tendency, when you have put something up on a pedestal for really long, humans also like to pull that down just as fast. We love to see our heroes fall, as they say. But so anyway, I think, but right now what this has happened is highly unfortunate. It's really sad that one person's death, an extremely talented individual's death by suicide, was made such a circus out of. As we have seen now, all the reports and verdicts and everything is going to speak what the truth was, and always was. But in this process, what did happen is that there were many, many, many issues that our country was facing and continues to face, that has not received the all the media attention that it should have, basically. And I think that's that's the success of the agenda. And I mean, let's look at it this way: even if your biggest star is called in for questioning, and what is the big deal, really? They've been called in for questioning. Whose life is it affecting other than that star and their management and their families? It's affecting like 7 to 8 people at most. There are things going on in this country that are affecting millions of people, and there's just no attention on any of those you know so yeah, I think we've absolutely, like, our sense of priority and has been warped a little bit. But it's okay, because the industry will bounce back. Let me very clearly say that the industry will bounce back, and we will continue to do what we continue to do. But the actual rogue elements that have spread these campaigns, honestly, I think they will slowly but surely see that, they will bury themselves into the ground eventually.
And I think, thank you for saying that, because I want to say this a little bit more clearly. India is having the worst unemployment crisis it has ever had. India is
Yeah,
having the worst food crisis it has ever had. Corona is not our only problem. Our economy
yeah.
is contracting by several percent. So I think the film industry has become a kind of a easy scapegoat with little sort of refuge.
Yeah, yeah, and not only that, we are also. I mean, I'll say we, but a lot of people in the industry are also, yes, as you said, liberal. Of course, why not?
Mm,
And and well, dissent. We dissent when
mm,
we see that there is atrocities and injustice taking place. And at the end of it, what is going on to some extent is also a very active crackdown on dissent. So
yeah.
uh, yeah, I guess whatever. It's not the first time it's happening in the history of the world. So
Yeah, and I think dissent is so critical here. A related question to that has come from Tahia, who she's saying, and I think she was hearing you say some of this, so she sent this question. She's asking this very simple question: did you not fear a backlash when you chose some of these controversial roles? I think she's again referring to MIH, because social media has made everybody so vulnerable, and especially the famous, the well-known, the recognized, so vulnerable. everybody can abuse you. People with 3 followers or no followers can get up and write the nastiest things about you. The whole world sees it. Um, it's become like a uncontrollable epidemic, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
when you
absolutely.
choose a role like this, first, did you fear backlash? Second, did you get backlash? And if you did, how did you cope with it?
Yeah, no, honestly, I think like even look when I got this role, it was June 2017.
Hmm.
So to be very honest with you, even 3 years ago, we were in a slightly different place from where we are now. You know, this level of trolling, and an IT cell operating the way it does, this was not happening back then, or maybe I mean, not to this extreme. You know what
Not
I
at-
mean?
yeah.
So I no, I did not fear any backlash. To be honest, I've never. That's just not the way I've worked in the over since the beginning of my career. So it's really sad if we have to now start considering that. Uh, yeah, so no, I did not fear it. And to my surprise as well, I did not get any, not even one. I mean, I myself would have expected at least one person somewhere will say something derogatory, nothing, not one. I'm in absolute shock and awe of how Made in Heaven and Karan Mehra has transcended really age, race, gender, nationality, religion, whatever, and just resonated as like an authentic, beautiful love story. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually a wonderful story to hear, because usually when, at least in India today, when you do something controversial, you can be assured of a kind of whiplash
yeah,
against you, even with
yeah.
most minor form of dissent. We're in the last leg of this. I don't know how this time has just passed. Thank you so much.
It
Um,
has, yeah.
yeah, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that are sort of people have been asking, and I think are sort of standard. I mean, what are the kind of actors that you are inspired by, whose craft you appreciate? And for instance, you mentioned how you worked with some of the leading actors. What was that like? Because many years ago, I don't remember who spoke about working with Nasir, and how just observing Nasir was a process of learning. Who are your favorite picks, and what was it like to work with some of them, if they were?
Okay, this I'm just going to go to a little bit of detail here because first of all, I mean, if I am to pick actors from all over the world, like sure, like Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale, there's a whole long list. Over
Hmm.
here, I would say that, in my AD days when I worked as an assistant director, I got very lucky that I got to observe actors like Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and Mr. Amir Khan through 2 films. And they really, they're institutions at their work also, and there's a lot to pick up from them just in terms of their professionalism, work ethic, the way they approach a project and a scene. So I think there's a lot that I had picked up in those years. And then very early in my career, got to work with Nasir Saab and a lot of really stellar actors. Um, so these are the actors. They are who inspire me, honestly. Nasiruddin Shah Saab and Irfan, his the career trajectory that he had. God rest his soul. And yeah, these are actors that inspire me because they're not too. I think their vision is just slightly broader, you know. And yeah, and I think art is universal, and I think I want to reach as wide as I can. I want to share something about Made in Heaven and Nasir Saab because in the year 2017, I had just finished shooting a film called Brij Mohan Amar Rahe, and I did not have any other work in hand at the time. I had not taken anything up. So after many years, and I have not done a professional play in many, many years, like 15 to 20 odd years, okay? And I one day got a call from Mr. Nasiruddin Shah saying, Mathur, mere saath play karega? I said, yeah, of course, let's do it. So 2017, the months of April, May, June, I spent rehearsing a play with Nasir Saab, and the rehearsals for that play were just like a masterclass. Like so often, there were like just every day and one-on-one conversations about acting and this and that, and it was just beautiful. At the same time, while I was rehearsing for this play, I had my first audition call for Made in Heaven. I shared with Nasir Saab that, this has happened. I've done an audition. Let's see what happens. And as it kept solidifying, it started becoming more real. And I was starting to hear these stories of, oh, no, no, no. If you're going to quit Nasir Saab's play, he's no, there are a scary reputation precedes him. Let's put it that way. But he's a real softie. But I was afraid, because finally now I was confirmed for Made in Heaven, and I had to. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, and I had to bow out of that play. And he so generously, and he really, I'm telling you that he blessed me and sent me to do Made in Heaven with his ashirwad. He said, "Jao, acha karke aao." And I stepped onto the sets of Made in Heaven completely primed by 3 months of rehearsal with Nasiruddin Shah. So I just want to give him this credit, loud and clear.
Well, this is a wonderful story to hear, especially about such a well-known actor and star. Usually
Yeah,
you just have horror stories to hear about, a lot of them,
yeah,
and this
yeah,
is a story filled with generosity and love. We're in the
yeah.
last 3 minutes, and my producer is ready to kill me. But I'm going to ask you this question, because before I let you go, I do want
Sure.
to ask you this question. This whole conversation that we are having right now about the arts and how the arts are suffering, in this pandemic, and probably will suffer. You mentioned theater, and I know you've been involved in theater before. And what would your advice be to young artists? Because a lot of them feel like this pandemic is the end of the road. There's no work to be had for a year and a half, and it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
to be motivated at this time.
There's enough happening around us to motivate us. I think it's important. Number one, I think it's important for artists to stay angry. I'm sorry, but I do think that's true. I think art is the revolution. I think it's really important for artists to continue to be putting out work through their poetry, art, paintings, drawing, theater, performance, whatever. It's important to keep being the voice of the people. The real voice of the people is art. And if someone's not listening, then the art just needs to get louder and louder. I think art is dissent, art is democracy, and yeah, art is the revolution. So please, young artists, we need you. Your nation needs you. So, continue your work. I know it's hard to stay motivated without monetary this thing, but just do it for passion. Just do it for passion for now. It'll all pay off when it has to. We have tough times to overcome.
Well, thank you so much. That's the perfect note to close on, because art is its own reward, but it's just remember that your art is also its reward to thousands and millions of people whose
Yeah,
voice it represents on a certain day. I mean, whether it's Banksy or it's Karan Mehra
yeah,
in Heaven, it's
absolutely.
kind of like the and particularly in popular art, I think it's very important, because sometimes popular art can transform you in ways that we don't know enough, and it changes mindsets, it changes societies. So
Yes.
thank you so much, and
Thank you.
thank you for thank you for coming over and
Thank
spending
you
all
for
this
having
time.
me.
Yeah,
Thank you
take
so